Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And just a quick video today talking about how I store my dry yeast, because I recently had this question come in several times when I did that video on the supply and demand, which I'll go ahead and link to down below. I had just purchased in that video, I was just talking about how I just purchased the Red Star yeast in two 2-pound bags like this. It was so far the best price I could find. I got these ones on Amazon. I was looking for them in our most local Costco, which is 75 miles from here. No yeast, which is what I expected. Now I did still have plenty of yeast stored up, but with the way things are going, I thought it would be wise to go ahead and store up more. And yes, I do have a video out on how you can do basically a homemade yeast. There's several different ways to do it. Mine is involving using the fermentation starter. I will go ahead and link to that video down below just in case you're unable to find dry yeast anywhere. There are ways to make bread from making your own fermentation starter from pretty much any plant, as long as it's edible. Fruit is good, ginger, you can even use herbs like dandelion, clover, and whatever. So make sure you check out that video if you're interested. But if you can get your hands on some dry yeast, or you already have it but you're wondering the best way to preserve it, that is what this is going to be about. So as long as your bags, now these ones here, these packages, they're several years old. I don't actually remember when I bought them, but I'd been stocking up and I'm down to just 4, not counting the last one I opened. So 4 pounds here. And then I thought it'd be a good idea to get some more, and that's why I bought these. But anyway, these are several years old and they're still good. As long as the bag stays sealed and it's tight like a brick, there's no looseness in there, it is still going to be good. However, yes, you can take your packages like this and stick them straight in the freezer. You can do that if you want. Freezing yeast is an excellent way to preserve it. You just want to bring it up to room temperature before you go to use it to make bread. It's best to do that anyway. I haven't actually had any issues using it straight out of the freezer, because you're going to warm it up anyway with your hot water, whatever hot liquid you're using when you first go to make whatever bread it is you're making. But anyway, I still like to let it sit out for a little bit and get to room temperature before I use it. But anyway, you can leave it like this and put it on your shelf and it'll be just fine. That's what I've done with all of these and have had no problems. However, once I do open up a package, then it goes in the freezer. Sometimes what I'll do is take the package, I'll fill up a little jar like this. You can see I just have one of these ball lids on here, and this goes in the freezer, and then this is the one I'm working through, and then I'll take a rubber band a lot of times and just roll this down as tight as I can get it and wrap it around. But even then I still tend to spill it, so I'm finding the best way to keep it in there is to put the rest of it in jars like this. Now, you don't have to vacuum seal it if you don't want to, but I do recommend using the 1/2 pint jars. You can go even smaller if you want. The smaller the jar, the better. You can vacuum seal it and freeze it, or just freeze it. I recommend either way, even in the jar, even vacuum sealed. I still recommend freezing it because it's going to stay darker in there, because it's also very important that your yeast doesn't get exposed to light. In these packages, they're not exposed to light, so that's another reason why they stay good. But as soon as you open them, they won't last for a real long time. And so it is good to freeze it once you've opened it up. So let me show you really quick, if you're going to vacuum seal, what you should do. This one here, like I said, is already vacuum sealed, and I can tell for certain because the button is down and I can tap on it and it doesn't pop up and down like this one here. Okay, so I haven't vacuum sealed this one yet. Since this is kind of a dry, somewhat powdery ingredient, before you vacuum seal, it's a good idea to put something over the top. It can be a little piece of paper towel, a little piece of cotton cloth, or even a coffee filter. Now this is a small little jar, so if you're using a coffee filter or paper towel, you just need a little piece of it. So what you want to do is you want to take whatever it is you're going to use. Like I've got this little square of fabric. If you're using fabric like this and you've ripped it like I've done, it's a good idea to pull off any loose threads, because they might want to come up under over the top of the rim of the jar. And you want to make sure there's no fabric, no pieces of thread or anything sticking out there. So just try to get it so it's completely covering the top of that. Take your lid and press it on there. You might want to double check. Make sure you don't have any pieces of fabric like right there. I'm trying to poke out the sides, and right there is one I'm having a little more trouble with. Okay, and then take your vacuum seal top. This is a regular size because it's a regular size jar. With your food saver machine or your brake bleeder pump, simply pump it up. I don't even go by numbers anymore, especially since the calibration is off on it. I just pump it up until the needle stops moving. That's just the best way to go. Notice how I set the handle of the pump right against the counter and just pump downwards instead of pumping this way, because that's a little too hard, especially if you have weak hands or you have arthritis or something. It's a little easier just to pump this way, and that way it's working your arms more, so it's not moving anymore. And now I know for sure it's sealed. And well, I pulled it off the funny way again. Yes, the regular mouth vacuum seal top, the little silicone thing tends to come out quite often. Make sure when you put it back in there though, you do it so that it's facing, the open side is facing outwards, not the other way around. Otherwise it won't work at all. Okay, and then just put your band on there, and then you can stick it in the freezer. And then it should last, it'll last like that for a very, very long time in your freezer. So again, you can store it all in your freezer if you have the space, but if you're needing the space for other things, then as long as your packages are sealed, you can set them on the shelf. I do still recommend keeping them in a cool, dark room or pantry. That's going to be best, just like with anything else when you're talking about preservations. But once you open it, then yes, it needs to be preserved another way. It's not going to stay good in a loose package, no matter how tightly you try to seal it up. It's just easy enough, especially if you've got smaller packages like this, to just go ahead and vacuum seal it or freeze it into jars. The vacuum sealing I did on these jars was really just an extra. It's not necessary if you're going to stick it in the freezer, as long as you have your lid on tight. But if that just makes you feel better about it, then you can go ahead and do that. And then, like I said, I just keep the one I'm working through. I just don't even bother putting on a lid like this, even loose in the jar like this. As long as it's in the freezer, it's going to be fine. I have never had my yeast go bad since I started doing it this way. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, and I also hope that you're able to still keep stocking up on some dry yeast. But it is also important to learn other ways to make bread. Make your own sourdough starters. They're actually really easy. No, I don't have a video on that yet, but I've made sourdough starters in the past. It's really easy to make your own. Or learn how to use the fermentation starter for making bread, or using the potato water that some people are doing. So I also recommend you check out Mary's Nest channel, and there's several other channels out there that do videos on how to make bread without having to use a dry yeast. And don't forget to check out my video down below on how to use the fermentation starter to make a yeast bread. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.